This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the Monday Night Raw review, everyone. It is Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, and a pretty eventful night last night on Monday Night Raw. We're going to dive into all the details of it, and Cody Rhodes calling someone else a politician. That's a bit of a look in the mirror moment. I thought a really good performance, believe it or not, from Nia Jax, who continues to impress me week after week, and had a really nice match with Becky until Liv Morgan interfered and cost Becky and or Nia the match. I mean, she interfered as Becky did last week, so now next week on Raw, we're going to have a Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan matchup that should be interesting in a lot of ways, but also kind of predictable, where you could see Nia Jax interfering and just taking them both out, and then there's some kind of triple threat, but then where does Rhea fit in? Essentially, Rhea and Becky ignored each other this week, other than a quick pass-by in the back. So it was a bit interesting that, your women's world championship match had nothing to do with Rhea Ripley this week and everything to do with Nia Jax and Liv Morgan. I'm not sure what's happening there, but it still feels as if there could have been a bigger main event for Rhea out there. However, I mean, they have to be doing something bigger with Bianca Belair over on SmackDown. Probably Jade Cargill. But to me, the WrestleMania main event for the women should have been Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair, and a match that it's really kind of perplexing how they haven't pulled the trigger on that one, but they know they got a bullet in the chamber, right? They know that matchup could headline a pay-per-view, or a PLE rather. It could headline any PLE other than maybe WrestleMania Night 2. It could headline a PLE, and I think that's saying something, given we haven't ever seen that match on the main roster. But that's for another day, another time. It's about Becky, it's about Rhea, and yet we still have more of the story to tell, as there are, let me count here, as we look ahead. I'm going to pull up my calendar because I always get mixed up on how many days or how many more Monday Night Raws we have left. And we have 4 Monday Night Raws to go. March 11th, 18th, 25th, and April 1st, with April Fool's Day being the final Monday Night Raw before the WrestleMania Night 1 event, which is, of course, Saturday, April 6th. So 4 more weeks of television for SmackDown and for Raw. So still a lot to fill, still a lot to really be able to, and a lot of time to build stories, but it's getting late early, if you've heard that expression before. And sure, they've got 4 more weeks, but that's 3 times 4, it's 12 hours of television. That's really a hell of a lot. So there's a lot to go here as we close in on WrestleMania, though. It's going to come up fast. It's about a month away now, and we've got a lot to talk about with Monday Night Raw, and we're going to do that in just a minute. But first, I'd like to welcome you to the show. This is the WWE Podcast. You guys can catch us nearly every single day here on the feed. If you want to go ad-free, you can go to Patreon or Apple Podcasts. That also gets you an exclusive After Dark show that is only for NXT Plus and above on Patreon, and all Apple subscribers, paid subscribers on the Apple Podcast side of things. We also have a website, www.podcast.com. So let's get right into it. And by the way, tomorrow's the mailbag. I want to let you guys know, if you are not a patron, still feel free to send your emails at mailbag@wwepodcast.com. That's mailbag@wwepodcast.com. If you're a patron, it's guaranteed that I will get to your email or question. If you're a non-patron, I will still make an effort, but I can't make any guarantees, as the volume of the mailbag has grown. I encourage everyone to still send in their emails. I do make an effort. I do now 2 parts to the mailbag every week to try to squeeze everybody in, but I want to make it just clear to everybody that patrons, if you're a patron, guaranteed I will read your email. If you're not, then, I'll make an effort. I really will make a best effort, but I can't 100% guarantee that, I'll get to your email. But I'll make that good old college try. All right, so let's dive into Monday Night Raw, and let's go in sequential order here. as we had Cody Rhodes open the show. They came to us from San Antonio, Texas at the Frost Bank Center. And we had, of course, another video package that seems to open every single show that they do of some kind of recap of Cody, Rock, Roman, Cody, Rock, Seth, Bob. Yeah, there's some always kind of recap of that. It's not a complaint, just an observation. And we did have Cody Rhodes, as I said, come out, and it's without saying he's in a suit. And we had Cody said he'd love to talk about how in the main event of WrestleMania 40, he'll stand across from the greatest champion in company history. And the fans booed when Cody mentioned Roman Reigns. He said, however, I'm really unable to talk about that because of a distraction. He said that, obviously he's referring to The Rock, who got booed. And then Cody recalled The Rock posting a 16-minute video on Instagram, deleting it, and then posting a 21-minute director's cut. Cody said The Rock referred to the fans as meth heads and badmouth his dog, and Cody told Rock to never talk about his dog. I mean, I just, out of everything The Rock said, that's what he first gets mad at, is calling his dog a goofy-ass dog. And he seemed genuine. It seemed like he was genuinely defending the honor of his animal, right? Of his pet, instead of, his family legacy that The Rock was attacking on top of it. Yeah, the hell with that. I'm going to worry about my dog. I mean, sorry guys, those of you that are Cody fans, he's a tool. A talented, successful, and soon to be undisputed champion, no doubt, but you can still be all those things and a tool. Okay, so I'm not denying any of the things you guys say about him that if you're fans of his babyface character, but my God, is he a tool? All right, so I just pissed off half of our audience. That's fine, but I agree with everything you guys say about him. It's just, he's just okay. Moving on. So Cody said the biggest headline The Rock made sure wasn't the headline that The Rock was that The Rock did not accept his challenge to a one-on-one. And Cody said Rock spun things and now in this review, they didn't mention that he said politician, but he did. He said that Cody, Rock like a master politician that he is, spun things. And Cody said, no wonder people want Rock to run for office. So, I do have to say, The Rock running for office would be interesting. I think I know which side he'd lean on. And whether or not you lean on that side would, of course, depend on if you vote for him. I do still hope this. I hope that if The Rock does truly run for office, probably in 2028, that he doesn't, or the fans don't vote for him just because he's The Rock and actually look at him as, he's going to lead this country. He's not really The Rock who's going to be rock bottoming people at meetings, okay, and doing promos in the White House. I hope people are smart enough to separate the Rock character from the man Dwayne and what he truly believes and, policy wise, if he does that. Okay. Because I can see people just voting for him like Arnold Schwarzenegger in California when he became governor and just voting for him because he's a celebrity, and how cool would that be? Now you could say the same thing about Donald Trump in some ways. I'm not getting political. I'm just equating what Cody said to Rock being a politician. So that said, though, it is interesting coming from Cody, who I've been calling a politician for months, calling The Rock the very same thing. Yet Cody's the one that's dressing like it, speaking like one. And you know who else speaks like one? John Cena. If you've ever, and I have nothing but respect for what he's done for the industry. I've got nothing but the utmost admiration for everything he's contributed and continues to contribute, and probably will to WrestleMania 40 in some kind of special appearance. But if you listen to him speak, it's almost as if someone has transformed him into how to speak like a politician. If you listen to him speak, it's like he's not a real human. He doesn't speak to you like a person. Go watch his recent interviews. Almost all of them are like he's speaking as if he's running for office. He's very careful with his words. He says a whole lot of fluff, but very little substance. And he doesn't speak like a human being speaks. Like if you talk to your friends, talk to your close friends. They're talking to you like they're a real human being. John Cena now has transformed in interviews to just this robotic, cookie cutter politician. And it drives me crazy. I don't know what it is or who told him or got in his ear to adjust how he speaks, or maybe he did it on his own. But it is just, it's painful to listen to John Cena speak now, because it's like he's got this mask on when he's speaking. You don't believe me? Go watch. It's frustrating to listen to him, because you're always like, what are you getting at? Can you just speak in plain English? It's very frustrating with John, and yet at the same time, I think he's the greatest of all time on the mic. Okay, moving on. Cody said what Rock recalled telling him, and he whispered into his ear on SmackDown, was mostly true. He said Rock poured honey in his ear and said that the people wanted Rock versus Roman rather than Cody versus Roman. Cody said the most peculiar thing happened when the fans chanted for something else. A "We Want Cody" chant broke out. Cody said that, he wasn't sure he was going to even be at WrestleMania, which doesn't make sense to me, because the backup was Cody versus Seth, and Cody would have just challenged to Seth Rollins for the World Championship. So when Cody said that, after he stepped aside for The Rock, that he wasn't even sure he was going to be at WrestleMania until the fans stepped in. Well, no. That's not true at all. Seth Rollins was there waiting for you, begging you to have a match with him at WrestleMania, until they decided to team up, of course, and challenge the Bloodline. But, it's just like, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. I mean, objectively, you're telling me that Cody Rhodes is saying to us, I wasn't going to do anything if it wasn't for you guys. BS. Stop it. But let's continue. "We Want Cody" chants broke out. Cody said WWE officials heard it. The Rock heard it, which triggered The Rock to refer to the fans as crybabies. And Cody felt safe now to refer to Seth Rollins as a friend. That always makes me nervous, because they could be setting us up for a Seth Rollins heel turn at WrestleMania. It's very possible. I don't think it's likely, given that, in his match with Drew, how that shakes out. Is that before or after this tag team match? I don't know how they're all going to lay it out there on the card. But anytime two rivals who have had a crazy rivalry suddenly are calling each other friends, makes me a little leery. Right? So I think if a turn were to happen, it would be Seth turning on Cody. We'll see. If I'm not officially predicting it, it's just it perked my ears up a little bit when I heard that Cody referring to Seth as a friend. It's like they're setting the table right now. They're putting the napkins and the plates and the cups and the forks and the knives down, and they're telling us to have a seat because they're setting the table for something. And it may be a whole bunch of nothing burger. It could be just they serve us a nothing burger, but I do think there might be something there. Just something to keep an eye on. Now, Seth did come out, and fans were really into it. And there was a graphic that said that Seth has been champion for 282 days, so he will easily surpass 300 as champion, which is more than a respectable run. Of course, if you take Roman's out of it, it's a very long run by today's standards. And again, Rollins referred to Cody as Mr. Nightmare and asked him what he was thinking. Cody recalled Rollins offering to have his back against the Bloodline, and Cody said the plot has been twisted. He didn't even think he'd be on the WrestleMania card, as I mentioned. Cody said it wasn't until he saw Rock's PowerPoint presentation about his family history he decided he had to go back on his word. Now, again, he said the fans also stepped in because the "We Want Cody" chant broke out. But now it's because of a PowerPoint presentation. It's because of the graphic that he decided to? What? I mean, this graphic, there's nothing wrong with it. It's true. I have to go back and to see if Rock said that that's the greatest, family to ever, be in professional wrestling. But even if he said that, I mean, it's kind of true in terms of lineage and just depth of the amount of Samoans that have come in and out of wrestling. It's just a fact compared to what? Cody's dad? And who else? You wrestling historians out there might know a few more. But, it's just fact. So suddenly that graphic is what tipped Cody Rhodes? What? to actually respect the Rumble victory? Was he really going to throw the Rumble victory away? I mean, here's the deal, guys. I know it sounds like a whole bunch of whining and complaining. The logic is a bit skewed, and it's a bit, well, it's the fans. Well, wait, it's the PowerPoint. Both are very weak in the fact that you would be crapping all over the Royal Rumble itself by not challenging the person you want to challenge for the championship you want. You are crapping not just on the fans, but on the actual prize that is the Royal Rumble victory and what that means. But again, I know it sounds like I'm whining and complaining. I'm actually appreciative of them exploring what The Rock said to Cody and about, why did Cody go back? What was the deal? What was said? I appreciate it because I was critical of the WWE for not filling in that gap of why did Cody step aside? What made him come back in? I'm glad they addressed that part of it that I thought they were glossing over of, well, it's because of the fans, which it seems like they did. And then they actually decided to have The Rock dive deep into it. Cody dove into it. So I really appreciate that. So I may not agree with some of the logic that a PowerPoint presentation changed his mind. Not winning the Rumble, of course, not winning the Royal Rumble, which is a career goal for a lot of wrestlers, but rather, that PowerPoint, that gets under my skin. I mean, it's a little ridiculous, but I would take this over no explanation. So I appreciate it. Now, moving on here. Cody said Rollins has to face Drew at WrestleMania, and he would fully understand if Rollins wanted to focus on that match, and he's not on board with having his back. But he said he'll take care of McIntyre, and he said that Rollins recalled stating that some things are, quote, bigger than us, and taking down the bloodline is the biggest thing we can do. I don't think that's a great statement from your world champion, saying that taking down the bloodline is the biggest thing you can do when you are supposed to be carrying a championship that, of your own words, you have said is the most important championship in the company. It is the workhorse championship, and suddenly winning a tag team match is more important than defending the championship that you're telling us is the most important? Again, little plot holes here and there, but I don't want to hear that from my world champion. The most important thing to you should be defending that world championship. That feels like a side story. How does the World Heavyweight Championship that they spent a year building and pretending it came out of nowhere when it really didn't, but that Seth Rollins has done a very good job overall with, all of a sudden you get to WrestleMania 40 and we know who Rollins' opponent is, and Rollins isn't even focused on Drew. He's focused on the tag team match and the bloodline. Now, that's kind of part of the story with what happened at the end of the show with Rollins disrespecting Drew and symbolically running past him, and McIntyre's making him remember that, hey, you better pay attention, boy. Because if you don't, you're going to be looking up at the lights, me over you, holding your championship. So I guess it's kind of building itself naturally into the story that Seth is ignoring his opponent essentially and overlooking him, looking past him, and more concerned about the bloodline. Again, the only downside of this is you're kind of devaluing the championship a little bit. But thank God for Drew, is all I have to say. Okay, we got Rocky Sucks chants, and I guess Rollins is trying to get Diarrhea Dwayne trending. We'll see if that sticks. I think it was trending for a little while, but I don't know if it has staying power. Sometimes they try to make things happen that just don't happen. Sometimes the best things are just natural and they aren't forced. So it's catchy. Okay, the Diarrhea and Dwayne both start with D's, and the implication is that he just spews stuff out of his mouth that has the consistency of wet baby poop. Okay, I mean it's okay, and the crowd did chant diarrhea. To my recollection, the first diarrhea chant in wrestling history, I believe. So history was made last night on Raw. But, Rollins was critical, saying that The Rock he claims that he made wrestling cool again. And Rollins mocked The Rock, saying, oh, our savior, guys, he saved us, he made it cool. Rollins said Rock hasn't been cool in 20 years, and said what is cool is that he received 100% medical clearance earlier in the day, and he's good to go and would be at SmackDown on Friday to confront the Bloodline. I would also look out for Drew on SmackDown, by the way. Rollins recalled saying he had Cody's back, and then he asked if Cody had his, and a yes chant broke out. So they're both going to be there on SmackDown. Should be an interesting show for sure, and the ratings are sky high right now, as they should be. All right. Well, again, I don't think Diarrhea Dwayne has a... It's kind of... The more I say it, the more it feels like weak sauce, but we'll see. All right, we then get really, this next match surprised me. And it was Gunther versus Dominick Mysterio. And it didn't surprise me in the way that I was concerned about match quality or anything like that. It was an eye-opener for me when it comes to what Michael Cole adds to a match. Gunther and Mysterio, of course, did their part. The chops were insane. If you go back and watch this without Michael Cole, it doesn't feel like the same match. Yes, Gunther did beat Dom in just under 10 minutes after a power bomb and then a Boston Crab and got the submission, which is also nice to see a Boston Crab come back as an actual submission, legitimate finish. So that's nice. And Dom did take a beating in this. But what really sold it, man, to me was Cole, who acted like he made you at home feel like you could feel the chops Gunther was delivering. He genuinely felt like he could feel Gunther's chops, and he was emoting that, relaying that feeling to us very well. His emotions came across genuine during that match. I mean, I don't know if no one else seems to be talking about it, but I wanted to praise Cole on this, who a lot of times gets some unfair criticism, but he did an excellent job in this match, selling it like crazy, and I loved it. So, again, why Dom decided to implement a chopping strategy against Gunther is suspect. We don't know, and neither did Cole, but a good match overall, and I thought it was an elevation for everyone in that match, including Dom. We then got Caden Carter and Katana Chance versus Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. You guessed it, a 6-minute match, so about double the typical women's tag team match. This was a victory for Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, and the finish was Carter and Chance hitting the after party on Stark. Baszler broke up the pin from the floor. Carter went after Baszler, and then she got caught in a Karafuda clutch. Stark rolled up and a distracted Chance and got the 3 count. So, again, I'm not sure what this means, other than it's going to be probably a multi-team match for the women's tag titles at WrestleMania, probably on the pre-show. Those titles, just their curse cannot be lifted. As I've said, somebody needs to we need a Priest to exercise those tag team titles. So, yeah, I know a lot of people are calling for mid-card belts for the women. Oh, we need a mid-card belt for the women. See, these women are directionless. I understand that. I know there's some women that could probably use that belt and elevate whatever championship they bring into WWE for the women. That's a mid-card belt. But until they can show me they can manage the existing belts well, I don't want them bringing in more belts. So I don't know. That's just my thought, but I understand. I mean, I think we're getting closer to implementing a women's mid-card belt, but I don't think we're quite there yet. Now, one of the biggest pieces of evidence for that is they don't have women's matches, one-on-ones, that aren't about the championship in some way. I know we had Becky and Nia, but Becky's already locked in for a championship match. She's already in the quote-unquote women's main event for WrestleMania. So, and Nia Jax has elevated herself to a level that I didn't think was even possible, so credit to Nia Jax. With the leg drops and everything else, and her hair that she let's go curly, I think is an asset. And so that doesn't count for me. To me, I'd want to see one-on-one women's matches that they're fighting for grudges, or they're just competing to see who's the best woman on that night. At that point, if we have several, like even just a couple, women's singles matches that have nothing to do with the women's world title or the WWE women's title, at that point, you'd be like, okay, I think it's time to give these women who are just kind of competing to compete something to compete for. But WWE has shown that they like to bring the belts in before there's a division to actually have the women compete in for those said championships, i.e. the tag team championships. There was no tag team division before they brought them in. None. Didn't exist. And throughout its entire history, there have been many, many instances where the women's tag team champions, whoever they were at the time, were unopposed in the division. They didn't even have anyone in the division to compete with. That's how sad the women's tag team division has been until they magically create these faux teams towards WrestleMania to create the illusion of a tag team division when there is none. It's a mirage. It is like the road looking like it's wet a mile up the road until you get there on a hot day, and then it's not there. It's exactly what the women's tag team division is. It's a mirage. It's water in the desert that you think you see, and then you get there and it vanishes. That's what it is. So, all right, I don't know how I got on that, but hey, a women's tag team match that lasted more than 3 minutes, I'll take it. Now, moving on, we did have Becky and Nia Jax next. Again, solid match here. It lasted just under 11 minutes. Liv Morgan jumped the barricade on to Nia Jax with a flying forearm. That caused the DQ finish. So Nia Jax technically did beat Becky Lynch by DQ, but this just caused more tension between Liv and Becky backstage. The bigger story to me is two things. Number one, Liv Morgan getting a bit of a character change here, and I think that's needed for her because this kind of schoolgirl, happy-go-lucky, lollipop in her mouth, at least in my mind. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that that's kind of how her character has presented itself, is this kind of happy-go-lucky, character. And now she is turning a little bit. I don't know if it's to the dark side for a full heel turn, but she's got an edge to her. And that is, to me, what I've taken from her change over the last month or two, is this edge that she has. And I like it. So, that's a positive for Liv. I don't know what the end game is for her, but her feuding with Becky Lynch, to me, in some ways, is more interesting than her and Rhea Ripley. Because, it's just like, I don't know what it is. Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch, to me, still, now they did nothing this week to further anyone's interest in Becky and Rhea. Nothing. Okay, I think they might have showed a video package, but it wasn't anything new. It was stuff we've already seen. So to me, it's like, I feel like at this point, with only a month to WrestleMania, I should feel way more excited about Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. And I'm very, just as I've said, MEH about it. Very meh. And I hope that changes. I want to be excited for this match. But right now, Becky Lynch is on a detour with Liv Morgan. All right, so moving on. We got Adam Pearce backstage talking about finding a challenger, which has been a challenge for him, of finding a worthy opponent for Gunther at WrestleMania. And Pearce said he had zeroed in on 6 men who deserve an opportunity, and those men are Sami Zayn, Ricochet, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bronson Reed, JD McDonough, and Chad Gable. And next week, they're going to compete in a gauntlet match to determine Gunther's challenger for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. I have mixed feelings about this, because while Gunther was slated to face Brock Lesnar, we all know what happened there. And it's a big bummer. It just is. It's a bummer that we got kind of shilled out of that match because of Brock's actions, or alleged actions until all things are settled. It's alleged, but doesn't look good for Brock. But it just sucks, does it not? Put all the actions aside, which are horrific, if they're true. Put those aside. Just from a pro wrestling fan perspective, it just effing sucks that we don't get Brock and Gunther. Does it not? The timing is terrible. It shouldn't happen at all, but if it was going to be released of that news, couldn't it have happened like the day after WrestleMania? It's like, all right, at least we got Gunther and Brock, and then put, Brock Lesnar in jail or whatever they're going to do with him. I don't know. So, I got a little bit sad when I heard that these are his opponents, which are all the people that the fans have been thinking is possible. Now, it is also still a possibility that it's a multi-person match where there is a schmaz finish and it's still, going to be a fatal four-way or something weird. But if they go one-on-one and there is a just a true winner. There's no substitute like Braun Breaker coming in. I think he's on SmackDown anyway. There's not a secret opponent that, there's a seventh man. And all those possibilities aside, if it is one of these men, I mean, I'd have to go with Chad Gable. I'd have to go with Chad Gable facing Gunther at WrestleMania. And no offense to Gable, but he is a far cry from Brock Lesnar. Maybe we should stop looking at it, or I should stop looking at it through the prism of what we could have had, but what rather we are probably going to have, and look at reality. The upside is, yes, it's not Brock, but if it's Chad Gable, who I think has a better, probably the best case out of all these men to win, the matches that they had on free TV were already outstanding. Imagine what they're going to do at WrestleMania 40 on the biggest stage of all time. Imagine the match that Gable and Gunther could have. And Gable has a solid story going into it. They faced each other, 3 times already? Every match was awesome. And Gable has a personal vendetta against Gunther that none of the other men do. And even Gable pointed that out, that all these other men, this is just a road to WrestleMania. For me, it's more. I think that tagline is going to stick. It's more. It means more for me. It's more than just that, because he made his daughter cry, which I find very funny. I mean, I have a daughter, but I find that very funny. Just Gunther's smirk, his arrogance. I love everything about that man. And making a child cry is just the ultimate bully thing to do. That said, it has to be Chad Gable, I would think. Sami Zayn, a close second. Shinsuke Nakamura, not a chance. You're not doing heel. Bronson Reed, too early, and you're not doing heel. JD, same thing. Ricochet is number 3, although I don't think anyone wants to see Ricochet and Gunther. We've seen it before, and it was not nearly as entertaining, I thought, as Chad Gable, who just meshes perfectly with Gunther in the ring. So to me, it's got to be Chad Gable. If there's no weird finish or surprise entrant or an additional entrant, I would think it's Gable and Gunther, and they play on that, and they play on the personal element of things, of making his daughter cry. They show us how awesome their series of matches were several months ago, and lean on that. And I think you have a potential discussion for a match of the night candidate. I mean, I really, that's saying something considering the card that we already have lined up. Chad Gable is a sleeper, man. He is, sure, he's been goofy. He's the Alpha Academy. He's been part of with Otis and doing all those wacky things. And he was Shorty G for a while, all those things. But that to me is long gone. And you just have a world-class athlete facing another world-class athlete. And this is going to be professional wrestling at its core on the biggest stage of all time. So I'm really rooting for Chad Gable here. I'm trying to hype myself up and not think about what could have been. Let me know what you guys think about that. All right. Then we get Apollo Crews. Apollo! Yeah, he still works for the company. I didn't know either. But he and Andrade didn't get a crazy reaction. I mean, he hasn't had time to really flesh his character out. And at first, Cole was saying this is his debut, and he corrected himself eventually and said re-debut. And I'm like, you forgot he was part of the company for like years? But this was, the match was okay. It was 3 minutes and 25 seconds. Andrade went over, as he should have, with a hammerlock DDT. And he referred to the move as La Sombra, and that's Spanish for the shadow. So that's the name of his finish. Apparently is going to be La Sombra, which is the shadow. Cool move. And cool name. Sounds good, right? But I do hope that Andrade's return doesn't flesh out like Naomi's, which is just a whole bunch of nothing right now. And yes, we're in WrestleMania season and plans have already been locked in. So maybe that's also, they're kind of a victim of circumstance where you weren't really put into the plans in the first place. So you're going to kind of tread water till WrestleMania. Maybe we'll throw you in a battle royal. We'll throw you on the pre-show, that kind of thing. And then after WrestleMania, we'll have more solidified plans for you. I think that's kind of where Naomi and where the Andrades of the world will live until after WrestleMania. Just seems to be the trend. And Apollo Crews, good to see him, I guess, but I didn't even know he was still here. All right. Let's see. Sami Zayn was interviewed backstage. He spoke about the highs and lows of his journey and how his confidence was shaken, but he also said he had a belief that a path would present itself. Zayn said he spoke about wanting to be a champion and to do something historic. Zayn said the gauntlet match was the only thing standing in his way and that the match would be do or die. So Zayn is a close second, but I still believe that's Chad Gable's match to lose. All right, we did get Ivar and Valhalla, though, interrupting Zayn, and Valhalla said she'd been praying to the gods all day while trying to understand why Zayn was in the match and Ivar wasn't. Ivar said he could beat Gunther and knows that Zayn knows that he can't beat Gunther. Zayn told Ivar that he knows he can beat him and challenged him to meet in the ring later in the show. All right. So they then get the Undisputed Tag Team Champions in a non-title match. Damien Priest and Finn Balor versus Kaiser and Vinci. Fun match. This match went 14 minutes, so the longest match on the show this point. And it ended with a clean victory for Priest and Balor with a South of Heaven chokeslam. And I think that to me was the right move, but also I have to say Damien Priest and Finn Balor did not get a whole lot of heat in that match. They got a fairly positive reaction when compared to normal. I mean, this group, especially with Rhea Ripley still in it and how beloved she is right now, and you have Damien Priest, who's visibly improved over the last year or two. I mean, to the point where most people expect him to cash in and win the world title, and there's no complaints about it. And you have Finn Balor, who's been kind of hiding under the cover of the Judgment Day and realizing, wait, we have Finn Balor here. Like, we forget how good he is, and remembering who he is and what he's capable of. And sometimes you get reminded of that in his matches, and you're like, oh, yeah. So you put all that together. And if outside of Dom, this is a babyface group. They didn't cheat to win. They're really not that evil of a group. They don't have evil intentions. I mean, at their core, what are they trying to do? Just win matches. They're out there trying to do the best they can. And they aren't really inherently dislikable. I mean, it's at least not anymore. I think that their unlikability is kind of wearing off. I don't know. That's how I feel. All right. So we then get Cole at the broadcast table saying he honestly can say that he wouldn't be in his 27th year in WWE were it not for Paul Heyman. Spending countless Wednesday nights in the editing booth with Taz, both of them being grilled by Paul Heyman, who taught them about announcing. Cole said that was minuscule compared to what Heyman has contributed to the industry. And then a Heyman package aired, and Cole congratulated him and said he deserves it. I mean, absolutely. Has there ever been in the history of professional wrestling a more dynamic and longer lasting wrestling manager? I don't know. I mean, Bobby the Brain Heenan, I'd have to see how many years he did. He was still regarded as one of the best, if not the best, by a lot of, even Paul Heyman says he's the best. But Paul Heyman has, been morphed from, wise man to advocate, right? I mean, he's done announcing, and he's done such a brilliant job. Obviously on the mic, we all know what he's capable of. And I mean, he still has a lot of years left in him, it looks like, relatively speaking. And he just continues to seemingly get better. And so, I mean, is there anyone more deserving when it comes to managers? I mean, you can label him whatever he wants. I know wrestling manager is an outdated term. They're the same role. They have the same role, the same function. You can call him whatever you want. It's like calling a car an automobile or vice versa. Like, okay, they're both created for the same purpose. So I know wrestling manager is not what WWE would call him, but he's a manager. He is. He's the manager of Roman Reigns. But that aside, yeah, I mean, I'm happy for Paul. It's interesting that Cole mentioned kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit on air, a little weird, but deserving for Heyman. So we'll have to see who else is in the top of this year's Hall of Fame class, and more importantly, who inducts him. You know who it can't be. Man, Brock screwed himself. Man. And all of us, I have to say. Alrighty. Drew McIntyre was then interviewed by Jackie Redmond, who congratulated Heyman and then asked if McIntyre felt if Rollins listened to anything he had to say when he warned him about the bloodline. McIntyre said no, because Rollins is a junkie who can't help himself. He said Rollins latches his claws into things like Punk and Cody Rhodes returning to WWE and now The Rock coming back. McIntyre said he would put Rollins down because the title deserves so much better than him. I mean, he's not wrong in a way. That's the thing about McIntyre. He speaks shreds of truth, if not a lot of truth, but he does it in an arrogant way, so that's, I guess, what makes him unlikable. He's threading just a brilliant needle every week. And that's true. Like, while Rollins is a respected talent, at this point I'd consider him a veteran, the title, it deserves not better than Rollins, but rather more attention. It deserves better when it comes to actually giving it the respect it deserves by paying attention to it. But McIntyre turned his focus to Jey and said he also deserves better. He said he just wanted an apology, but he would be the bigger man by apologizing to Jey because he needs the victory and won't get it at his expense. Again, great stuff. And one other nice production change I've noticed, small but important. Two things. When they're doing transitions from Cole to backstage, they don't pretend that they didn't just... The announcer that he's transitioning to doesn't pretend that he didn't or she didn't see what just happened. They'll say, thanks Cole, or like just a nice bridge to the announcer or interviewer clearly watching the product. Do you know what I'm saying? I guess it's hard to describe. It's a nice kind of transition that's much more just quick and easy. But also the bigger thing to me is the talent being shown arriving at the arenas. Now, are they staged arrivals or are they authentic? Probably a little bit of both. I don't care, because it makes it feel more sports-like. And that's the feel I think they're going for that is working. Those little things. Just seeing your one of the wrestlers or a couple of the wrestlers every week going to the arena with their roller bag, with their travel clothes on, not in full makeup. That to me authenticates what we're watching. Does it not? I mean, those little production things and additions and changes add up to a just more believable sports simulation experience. That's my take on that. All right. We got Sami Zayn versus Ivar next. Sami Zayn beats Ivar in 11 minutes. The finish was Sami Zayn performing an exploder suplex. Zayn looked into the crowd and then went for his finish, but Ivar stuffed it again. And then Ivar went to the top, attempted his doom salt, and Zayn rolled out of the way, and Zayn hit the hell of a kick and got the 3 count. So Zayn building a little momentum, as they say. However, Bronson Reed did attack Zayn and hit him with a tsunami splash after, and then pointed to the WrestleMania sign. So the victory, while it was a victory, the feel-good moment didn't last long with Bronson Reed attacking Zayn. Now, what does that mean? Really a whole bunch of nothing right now. I don't think we are supposed to believe that Bronson Reed is going to win the match next week. He almost has a 0% chance, if not 0. All right, it's main event time, specifically main event Jey Uso time against Drew McIntyre. Match was 16 minutes and 45 seconds here. Drew McIntyre beats Jey Uso, but beats him in the way that all the matches Drew has come up to this point since turning heel has won, and that is he is the beneficiary of circumstance. And I love it. Now, do I love Jimmy interfering again? Because I'm just personally not interested in Jimmy J. My personal preference. I know a lot of you are, and good, cool. To me, it's been there, done that in a lot of ways. I know that they haven't ever faced each other one-on-one, especially on a big platform. It could add some interest to it, but I think Jay should be competing for a championship. I mean, to me, it should have been Jay versus Gunther, with Jay beating Gunther for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. I still stand by that. That would be a much more rewarding experience for Jay. And as far as Jimmy goes, he could just be the lackey that gets his ass kicked in the Roman Reigns' match if he interferes. I'm sorry, Jimmy is not an interesting character. He's weak. At least his character comes off as weak, pandering to Roman. No explanation why he decided to rejoin Roman. We still didn't get that. He's a background character at best, other than when he shows up to get the rub off his brother's success and interfering and screwing Jay. I am so disinterested in Jimmy Uso because his character has nothing left to offer, at least this version of it. I'm not saying he doesn't. He's very good in the ring. When he was with his brother, it was next level. The Sami Zayn, Jay, Jimmy dynamic when Sami was in the bloodline was a whole lot of fun. He's capable of more. I'm just saying this iteration of Jimmy has run out of gas. So I find Jimmy's character extremely boring. But he's involved with Jay now. And it looks like Jay's finally going to snap and show up. I would imagine Jay's going to show up at SmackDown this week. I really believe that. I mean, I think Drew and Jay are going to show up when the inevitable brawl breaks out between The Rock, Roman, Cody, and Seth. You're then going to have probably Drew come out and then Jay come out to counter Drew, or to try to take out his brother. I mean, something wacky. You're going to see all these men. It's going to be a big SmackDown. That's my prediction. But as far as this match goes with Drew and Jay, really good match. Now, again, until Jimmy came to screw Jay, which not my cup of tea, but I understand why they did it. Jimmy then grabbed a chair, entered the ring while McIntyre was headed towards the stage. Rollins comes in, completely blows past McIntyre, and takes out Jimmy with a super kick. And McIntyre followed Rollins to the ring and put him down with a Claymore once he turned around. And then he knelt over Rollins and, told him that he should stop focusing and worrying about everything else or his title will be gone, which was good. Again, it progressed another step towards Jimmy, if you're interested in such things. It also furthered the narrative of Drew being ignored, the World Championship being ignored, put aside, with Roman Reigns and The Rock at the forefront. Drew has a hell of a case here. Rollins' focus and attention is divided, which means advantage Drew. So I think that right now they're firing on all cylinders. Now, again, not everything's my cup of tea, but it never is. Just like you can't tell me that as a wrestling fan, everything all the time, even just for 1 week, is your cup of tea. Very difficult. Very difficult. So you kind of know as a fan, hey, this is probably stuff other fans are going to enjoy, but it's not for me. And that's okay. And that's a lot of what my opinions consist of are not my thing. Cody Rhodes babyface, not my thing. Jimmy J, not my thing. Right? But I know a lot of you totally disagree. But that's okay. That's what makes wrestling great, because there's a lot of stuff for everybody. So that's kind of my Raw review. I mean, if I was to grade Raw, from say A+ to F-, I don't know how you can have an F-. Like, if you fail, you fail. You can't fail double, can you? I don't know. But I'd say Raw was like a B-. I thought it was a good show. It moved things forward, and not as much pure wrestling as I'd like, I guess, but still, it's WrestleMania season. They're getting matches on the card. Next week we'll have an opponent for Gunther, which will be really good to talk about at that point. And we'll, further probably Jimmy J being official for WrestleMania as well. So a lot coming up, guys. So much coming up when it comes to WrestleMania 40. And again, returns we haven't even thought of yet. you can bet your bottom dollar that, again, I think The Rock, or rather John Cena, is going to be at WrestleMania. I continue to believe Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to be at WrestleMania with a big impact type of moment. I even believe CM Punk could be at WrestleMania in a limited capacity, limited meaning no physicality whatsoever. Charlotte Flair, as I've mentioned, I think could also show up at WrestleMania in a very limited physical component, or just to physically be there, stare down the woman at WrestleMania as like a precursor for when she's healed, this is coming, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I think just because the stars are injured doesn't mean you're not going to see them. It just means they're not going to be physically involved at the level that we all would like them to be at. So it's kind of where we're landing here today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Tomorrow I'll be back with the mailbag. Again, patrons, send in your emails. Everyone else, send in your emails. I encourage you to. But, I'll make an effort to get to all the non-patrons the best that I can. I left a handful out last week for the first time, and I do feel bad. But volume. And I'm one guy. So I can't get to all the emails like I'd like to. But if you're a patron, like I said, you will have your email read, and read at the beginning of the show. So that's an incentive for you to go on Patreon if you are so inclined, on top of exclusive shows like the After Dark show that we air every Friday or Saturday. And you can even come on the show. If you go up high enough in tier, you can be a guest on the show. So how about that? That'll do it for me, everybody. So thank you so much for joining me. Send in those emails, and I will talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.